The dynamic presence of A.A. Champion, historian, rancher, public service, and mentor, lingers within the Brownsville community to this very moment. This soft-spoken, well-dressed gentleman devoted a lifetime to knowledge, research, and pinpoint accuracy. Albert Alfonso Champion knew history, studied it, walked the sites, and read everything he could find. His appreciation and value of the written word began at a very early age.
I remember when we were going to school, you know, you don't talk about books and I remember that he told me one day, we're proud, that he had ordered the Harvard Classics, and for a boy 18, 19 years old, you know, it's not very common to do that. But he was always talking about that, or either that or the history, or that's what he liked.
An avid historical interest developed, ironically, while he was ill as a young man.
Dad got sick back in the early 30s, and he had TB. And he was bedridden for a number of years, and that's what kind of got him started on. There was nothing to do except read and do that sort of thing. So he started reading, and he found out that what he enjoyed reading the most was history. And the more he read about history, well, then the more he started researching it, and it just became an avocation for him. And he did it, gosh, I guess 60 years.
One of Mr. Champion's more memorable contributions to the history of this area was the precise location of the Palo Alto battlefield, mistakenly identified by government researchers.
Well, I know some archivists came down from Washington, D.C., and archaeologists and archivists, and they came down and they determined where the Battle of Palo Alto took place. And then, of course, they published this, and they were going to set up the National Battlefield Site. Well, my dad got a hold of their writings. He looked at it, and he went out there, and he called them, and he said, "You're wrong." He said, "That's not what the battle was." Now, I'm not sure exactly where they had picked. I think they picked a site that was closer over to Loma Alta. But he said, "No, that's not the site." And they said, "Oh, it is, because we brought our people down from Washington, D.C., and of course they know." And he says, "Well, they don't know." So he took them out there, and he told them what to look for and where to look, and they would determine from what he told them where the battle actually was. Well, they went out there, and they found artifacts, and they found the things that the archaeologists look for. And they said, "Well, you're right, Mr. Champion, this is where the battle was," and not where they had originally picked. And of course, they have it correct now. And I say they have it correct because they have it where Dad picked it.
Historical discoveries by Mr. Champion were recorded on a series of note cards, meticulously filed and cross-referenced for easy access.
Well, what he did was, what he didn't have, he went out and searched for it. He'd dig into the most interesting places, and he started putting it on card files. And he has a tremendous collection of detail on individuals and places and events. He is very detailed in his collection of material. But he himself was a very distinguished man, and because of his bearing and everything, people were very happy to work with him on his compiling this information.
A.A. Champion, the public servant, proudly served his community.
He really served his community. He was on the board, well, you saw the school board. He was on a city commission twice. And he liked politics, but he also liked more than to read and study. He was always studying.
As a mentor, A.A. Champion helped dozens of information seekers on a variety of historical projects.
I'm a history nut, and although my degree was in zoology and chemistry, when I went for my master's in administration, I went into history. And we had a very close relationship because of the fact that I was writing a paper on the Brownsville Affray of 1906. And I would go by on the weekends, and he would give me some of his time to tell me if I was doing it correctly or not.
Yes, he was very easy to work with, very quiet. Everything he did was very positive. He didn't get excited, and as they all say, some people you jump on the horse and ride off in all directions. He was a person that knew step by step what he was doing, and when you ask him for information, he'd take you step by step so that you had a good picture of what he's talking about.
He constantly had students going over there. Once he got the reputation, and he didn't mind talking to them, then, you know, they were there. They'd call him up and they'd say, we're working on this project, and, you know, we need some help. And he'd say, come on over.
Mr. Champion honored education by giving much of his life to research, service, and inspiration.
I see that he understands the importance of education. He had made sure all of his children were educated, and that would be the greatest thing, is that he is a great promoter of education, and he believes that well, he used to always say, make sure that you get information as detailed as possible from the very beginning, which required a lot of research.
He worked with a university. At that time, it was a junior college, and he worked for it to be able to see that there would be education for all locally, and the kids would not have to pay to go somewhere else. That's probably one of the largest contributions he made. But he also worked to make sure that the schools of Brownsville grew and went forward to what they are today.
Besides history, that's education was his life. Absolutely.
The leadership role seemed to come easily to A.A. Champion, a much sought-after advisor and servant of the public good.
Because of his understanding of the situation, people would listen to him and they respected his opinion. Well, what he could do is, he was a very honest, outspoken person. He wouldn't lollygag around. If you ask him a question, he'd give you a straight answer.
He was interested in the growth of Brownsville, and thus he gave us, through his leadership with other leaders in Brownsville, the future that we have, because we have a future that nobody else has, and that is that we have the port, the public utilities. Today we have our own public transportation, we have our four-year university, and all of these things were started by leaders like him who were able to have the foresight to see the future.
As I remember him, a little boy growing up, he was always behind the scenes during the city and school board elections. He was always, it seemed like our house was sort of a little headquarters. When somebody wanted to run for office, they would go visit with Dad and get his ideas. And he would either encourage them or discourage them. But very, very involved in that.
A.A. Champion, truly a man whose work shall stand for time immemorial.
The most important thing was the fact that this man was always an outstanding figure. You never saw him without his tie and his jacket, and he had that air of commanding performance. People looked up to him because of the fact that he knew what he was talking about, and people followed him because of this. And he was very arrogant, very astute in the way that he went about doing things. And he took care of business for this community as well as anybody could during the times that he was alive, and kept on being a leader. And even to the time that he no longer was working with his ranch or with politics or anything else, he kept on being a source of information for a lot of people that needed information on the history of Brownsville. And I figure that, you know, without his knowledge, we would have lost a lot of that history.
Well, like I say, he's always been my mentor, and I've learned a lot from just the things he told me. I feel like having known him is a very great part of my life.
He's been gone for 10 years, and they still remember him and think about him as someone who ought to have a school named after him. So that's, to me, that's quite an accomplishment.
I'm very proud of him. I think he deserves it.